Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Kenny Conversation, brought to you by JEGS, the leader in high performance aftermarket car parts. Remember to go to jegs.com for everything you need to fix your hot rod up or your everyday vehicle. You are looking at one of the greatest crew chiefs of our era, Rodney Childers. Rodney, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
Man, I'm doing good. And the first thing I notice when I see you is we have a Chevrolet logo now.
Yeah, that's nice to be back with Chevrolet, to win a lot of races with them, with Kevin, and to win a championship with them was really cool back in 2014, and be back with the Hendrick Engine Shop and all the guys over there. It's been pretty special so far.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. And let's start right there. You kind of glossed over it. And Rodney, anytime we do a Kenny conversation, it's a celebration of that person. And I always want to say that first and foremost. This is a celebration of you. You've done a lot. So let's start right there. Rodney Childers, 2014 championship crew chief for Kevin Harvick. Now the next stats are pretty eye opening, and these are your NASCAR Cup stats: 676 Cup races, 40 Cup wins, 34 Cup poles, and I always think these are important. 178 top fives, but this is amazing too. 298 top tens. When you look at 676 cup races and basically 300 top tens, but at half the time you're up there doing it. That's pretty big. When I say all that, and I say this to everybody, when I tell you all that, what are you thinking about?
I mean, honestly, just thinking about how many good people I've been around in all these years, to be able to work with such great people, teammates, drivers, owners, engine builders, all those things, every bit of it matters. And I've been really fortunate, you know, through every piece and part of it. It's been pretty special, and definitely not a one man band by any means. It takes all of us to make it happen.
Yeah. Let's talk about right now. We're going to do like a movie. Let's talk about right now, then we're going to go back, and then we're going to come back. Yeah, I think that's just the way to do it. So, right now, you are at Spire Motorsports, and you're going to be the crew chief for Justin Haley. I believe, is that correct?
Yeah, this is my first time working here at Spire. Everything's been really, really good so far, for a small team that has changed so much in a couple years. But really, if you look at how much they've changed in the last 12 months, at the end of Kevin's career, I ended up losing probably 5 guys off the 4 team that came to Spire and worked here last year, and really kept up with those guys. And everything, every time I talked to one of those guys, they loved working here and they loved the atmosphere. So throughout the year, I just kind of paid a lot of attention to what they were doing as a company and where they were going. And of course, when I got looking, I had a few phone calls here and there, and really liked what they had to say, and where they were headed. The biggest thing is they had a plan. Not many people had a plan that I talked to, and they had a plan. And uh, it's been a lot of fun. We've only been here since like the second week in November, but you're talking about a lot of change. If you would have saw the shop and the cars and all 3 months ago compared to where it is now, it's pretty incredible.
Spire Motorsports is interesting to me. I bragged on them last year. They reached out to me to thank me, but I was just honest. I just saw that they were coming. Like those executives there, they have a lot of history in racing. And is this their time right now? I mean, you're telling me that you see them going hard. I guess part of that was coming to get you. It looks to me like they're getting aggressive in NASCAR ownership right now.
Yeah, for sure. Like when you stand, a weekday morning out here in the shop, and we're getting ready to have our team meeting, and you look around at the amount of talent that is in this building, it's absolutely insane. And there's a lot of places that you have A people and B people and C people and D people or whatever. And you look around right now, and it's like all A+ people standing around in a circle. And normally when you get that many good people together, you can make good things happen.
How many, if we were to go from, say, 1 to 100, let's say that would be the graph, 1 to 100, how many people are there from Stewart-Haas Racing? How many people followed you over?
I think there ended up being maybe 18 or 20 people
Mm.
total that came from Stewart-Haas. And some of them, came from the 4 car to the 7. But there's also a lot of designers, QC guys, fabricators, shop guys, all kinds of different people. So, um, that's not something that was in my plan to begin with. Somebody asked me that yesterday, if that was kind of, how I sat down with Spire to begin with. It's like, I'll come if I can take 20 people with me.
Yeah.
It was never that way. I decided to come, and then we kind of worked on it from there. But, they were trying to build and bring new people in. And like I said, A+ talent is hard to get right now. So, we just worked on it over time, and man, we've got a great group of people here, and it's exciting to look around and realize what you have.
All right, we've established your stats. You are a Hall of Fame NASCAR Cup crew chief. You've won a lot. You're at Spire. Uh, I want to go back and talk about you, totally you. You amaze me. You fall underneath this Paul Wolf and maybe even a Cole Pern. It's like you all are blood brothers. You were a great, and I mean great. You were good. You were a good race car driver, and I want to read some of these stats to a lot of people out there. Um, when you were 12 years old, you were running the WKA World Karting Association. At 12 years old, the man you're looking at right now won 7 championships in South Carolina and 5 national championships. Then you got going, and then in 2000 you made a start at Myrtle Beach in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So I guess my question to you is this: at what point, and I'm not really grouping you in, but I know Paul Wolf's story, and I've heard these stories about these great race car drivers like yourself. At what moment? Tell me about that whole time, and when did you decide to go, hey, I'm gonna be a mechanic and I'm gonna go into this crew chief role? Just that whole storyline right there.
Yeah, I had an interesting start. My parents really weren't in racing at all.
Mm.
For me, it really came down to one of my best friends. His dad had a racing go-kart. I went with them to Lincolnton one night and watched his dad race. And, it come Christmas time, and I was like begging my parents for a racing go-kart, and kind of just got into it with just me and my mom. My dad was always working on Fridays and Saturdays, and even some Sundays. And my mom would take me to the racetrack in the back of a S10 truck, just me and her. And all the men around the racetrack would always hate that she was down there trying to crank an old Briggs motor,
I love it.
but that's how it was in the beginning, and then I got picked up by a factory kart team only about a year into my go-kart racing. And that's really what turned everything around. We had the best motors, we had the best go-karts. We worked hard. We had the biggest trailer every time we pulled in, and we had the most tires in the trailer, and you know how important that is in dirt racing. So, I think that was key right there to start what ended up happening later on. Building a new go-kart every week, and this one had this kingpin inclination, and this one had this caster, and this one had this tubing, and this one was this thick and this stiff and this wheelbase. And we were at 12 years old, 13 years old, we were messing with all that, and I was like a sponge at the time and just learning all that stuff, and scaling 5 go-karts a week, and just learning all that stuff. And not many 13-year-olds know what tubing is in their go-kart and how it was welded, and how much wedge is in it, how much nose weight's in it, how much caster's in it. Like being a racer, you understand that, and that was so important to kick me off, to get me going. Later I started racing on my own, and it was kind of refreshing, honestly, because, before that, it was kind of always a group decision of, all right, we're going to put these tires on it for the main with this stagger and this air pressure or whatever. And for me, I needed to kind of do it on my own. I needed to make my own decisions at one point. I kind of got to that age, and man, we won everything you could win that year. It was ridiculous. And then, like you said, I went from go-kart racing to running a little bit of legend cars, just kind of part-time. Then got into the late model stock cars. And same thing I was saying earlier, I've been really fortunate through all this. I bought one of Greg Marlowe's old cars, and Greg would come to the shop, and, he would hint around of, you need these springs in it, or you need this sway bar, or you need this much wedge and all that. And I was smart enough to know how to scale it and to do all that stuff. And I went to the first late model race at Tri-County in 98, and it was a 150 lap big money race. And I sat on the pole and led every lap, and everybody's like, who in the world is this? And where did he come from?
I love this. I love it.
I had a lot of great runs in that late model stock car series. Went to a lot of big races at the end of 98 and ran really, really well. Me and Philip Morris kind of beat each other's doors
now,
off.
There's the
2
name.
Big money races.
There's the name, Philip Morris. He was good.
When you race
him?
against somebody like him, when you race against somebody like him, you're doing it. So, did a lot of late model stuff. Moved up and run the Slim Jim All Pro Series for a year. Ran really well in that. It only lasted for a year, but that was interesting because that was the first time I was traveling full time in a race car and going to a lot of big tracks I'd never been to. Taking a super late model to St. Louis is to Gateway. I mean, you're getting on with it,
Nervy.
getting down into turn 1. So yeah, especially when your radio don't work in the race. So had no spotter for the whole race, but just a lot of things like that propelled me into a position of where we got to run one bush race at Myrtle Beach, and that didn't go the way we wanted to. But like when you're at that age and you have that many bush cars showing up every week, you have to take every opportunity you can get to get any seat time, on radial tires and do all that stuff. And little did we know, we bought a car at an auction that had intermediate brakes on it, and we took it to Myrtle Beach, and that didn't quite work out. But and then we got caught up in somebody else's wreck. But it's hard to miss a wreck when you don't have any brakes.
Well,
so,
what was the moment? You're doing a fantastic job, and gosh, you're giving me so much information. When you're saying all this, talking about go-karts, caster, camber, kingpin inclination. A lot of people don't know about this tubing thickness, the way you weld it. How's the welder heat? How's it going to flex? I can hear my brother Rusty saying, Herman, the difference between good race car drivers and bad ones is Rusty always said, you got to get your head in the carburetor. And every once in a while you have a Kyle Larson or Jeff Gordon come along that don't even know how to weld. But that's pretty rare. In your mindset, you had a lot of success with Harvick. He was a racer. Was that important for you to go that route, to know everything about your cars?
Yeah, it really was. And it's funny you say that about Rusty because I always felt like I was like that. I would watch him and the way that he talked to his crew and stuff. And like I could
Yeah.
go build the shocks myself and put them on myself, and I know how Rusty was with his Martinsville shocks, keeping them under his bed. But,
True
you
story.
know,
Yep. Dolphin
but,
nose. It was a dolphin nosed. He loved that dolphin nose on the graph. Squat.
yeah.
He loved. Go ahead. Now you got me. Now you got me going.
Yeah. But yeah, that helped a ton, really with everybody, with Kevin, with Mark Martin, like to be able to have those conversations about cars and, what we were doing and all those things. And, that was important, right? I mean, it just helps you have those conversations and make the right decisions and do the right things. And I think it was important no matter who was driving the car, honestly.
Okay, so now let's go to that moment. I started to ask you it earlier, but we got talking race cars. Do you remember the moment? Were you driving in your vehicle? Were you laying in bed? Where were you when you said, I think I'm going to be some type of crew member? And, when did this moment change where you said, okay, I'm going to go into being a crew chief?
Well, I have to be honest with you. Some of it was when we had some tragedies in our sport, when we went through that spell of boosters falling off and falling in the carburetors and people getting killed. Um, that's when it started to hit me. I grew up racing go-karts against Adam Petty, and that one probably hit me the most. And then it just went on and went on, right? I mean, we went through a spell there that it was pretty scary, with Adam and Kenny Irwin and all these different people. I had one of them happen right in front of me at Gateway in an all-pro car, and that guy never raced again. So, some of that was starting to wear on me, whether I really wanted to be in that position and get killed one day or whatever, right? I mean, that started weighing on me. And then, of course, Earnhardt got killed. I'm telling you, I was a disaster for weeks when Dale got killed. Um, and then it just come down to the opportunities were getting more and more shy. I didn't have a family business or money behind me. I didn't have sponsors behind me to go walk in the door and say, hey, I can bring $1 million if you let me drive your Busch car. So the opportunities just kept getting more and more thin. I was getting older. At that point I was probably, I don't know. I mean, I was 20 years old, 22, 23, something like that. So I was thinking, I don't want to live with my parents my whole life. I want to get a wife and married one day. I want to have my own life and make my own money. So all that stuff just kept adding up more and more. And it really come down to going to lunch with one of my friends. He had got out of late model racing. He worked at AFCO for a long time and then went and started his own shock business. And then he went to work at Jasper Motorsports on the 77 car with Blaney. And he was a shock guy. And we went to lunch one day, just like we always did. And he's like, when are you going to quit racing? And I was like, I'm never going to quit racing. He goes, well, when are you going to quit driving? And I was like, I don't know. Why do you say that? And he goes, well, I've been working at this Cup team for a year now. And I'm telling you, if you came in, you're smarter than 70 to 80% of people that are on our team right now. And I feel like you're going to move up really quickly and do whatever you want to do, whatever you want to make out of it. So I went home and I probably thought about that for 2 weeks. And I had, Katrina and I had been dating and obviously thinking about getting married one day. And, like I was saying, and finally I called him. I was like, well, can you get me an interview? Like, how does this work? I've never had to go interview anywhere before in my life. So he got me an interview and I went up there and met with them and just took it from there. They offered me a job that day of being on the road crew with the 77 team and Blaney and started out as the little interior guy and that would carry his helmet out there and driver fluffer, I guess you could say. And, and just took it from there and moved up to be the front mechanic later that year. And then a year later become the car chief. And just, it went fast after that. I mean, the first time ever flying in a plane was in January of 2003 and working on a cup team. And in like June or July 2005, I was the crew chief over at MBV for Scott Riggs. So it was only 2.5 years of being in the cup garage of moving up to be a crew chief.
I listen, although I talk a lot, I listen. And I want to talk about something you just talked about. As you know, I'm a little over 61 years old, and I raced a lot of NASCAR. And like you, I was a Cup crew chief in 1984 on the Levi Garrett team with Joe Ruttman. I was a tire changer, for Rusty. Then I became a race car driver. But we went through an era while I was racing in NASCAR where Neil Bonnet got killed. Then Blaze Alexander got killed. Then Dale Earnhardt Sr. gets killed. Adam Petty gets killed. Everybody's getting killed. Nobody's getting maimed. Nobody's getting hurt. Nobody's getting broken legs. Everybody's getting killed.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Rusty even talked about this. Rusty Wallace, when he retired, he says, and you just mentioned it too, when Earnhardt got killed, it's like, how can Superman get killed? So my question to you is this: at that point, do you think all your comrades, everybody in the garage area, said, "Holy crap, our sport is really dangerous"? What was your thoughts at that time? Besides saying, you know what, maybe I don't want to be a race car driver.
Yeah. It was just one thing after another, right? I mean, whether it was throttles hanging up or, airplane crashes or helicopter crashes or whatever. I mean, gosh, it just seemed like one after another. And if you're a huge race fan and, and you wanted to be a race car driver and you knew that one day either you might be in that position where your throttle hangs or your right front tire is going to blow out or you're going to be on a helicopter, you're going to be on a private jet or all those different things, you start questioning that. It's like, man, I don't know about that. Because at that point, like I said, I'd never even been on an airplane before. I'm like, I'm going to go from not ever being on an airplane to flying 24/7 all over the nation, but like you said, once those things started happening, it just hit you in the gut, like it was hard to imagine losing all these people that we all looked up to. And like you said, Earnhardt was Superman, and like none of us ever expected that to happen. And, with me growing up with Dale Jr. and going to high school with him and sitting beside each other at school and
hold on. Whoa, back up. Hold. I hardly ever interrupt. I had no idea about that. You and Dale Jr. went to school together?
Yeah, we went to high school together and we
what high school?
We sat beside each other in Mooresville Senior High.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, we went to Mooresville Senior High. We sat right beside each other in drafting class, and that was before he was even racing, and I was racing, and it was so cool because he never pictured himself as a race car driver. Mm-hmm. Like he went and rode a go-kart one time, and he flipped it right in front of his dad, and his dad told him he was done. He was never racing again, and so he knew I was winning like all the time. So every Monday morning, he's like, where did you go? How many classes did you win? And he would sit there in drafting class and draw pictures of Busch cars with my name above the door and my number on them. And he's like, yeah, what do you think about this one? This is going to be you one day.
This is amazing.
Like he believed I was the one that was going to be the race car driver, not him. And so, we ended up being pretty good buddies. I went to his first street stock race over at Concord. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have the rear gears welded up. So his uncle Danny had built this big motor for it. And it had all the horsepower in the world, but it only had one-wheel drive because we didn't have the gears welded up. So
Oh,
it spun the right rear tire all the way around the racetrack. Um, but yeah, we had a lot of good times together, and but yeah, I mean that's why it hit me the most. I think it was one thing to lose, like some of those guys that we were talking about, but when Dale Senior got killed, man, that was a gut punch. I couldn't picture what it would be like to be Dale Jr. to number one lose your father, but to lose what everybody considered Superman.
this is amazing. All the studying I've done, I do a lot of studying, and I surprise people where I know more about them than they think. But is that hidden? I mean, why have I never heard? I mean, that should be a story. Rodney Childers and Dale Jr. went to high school together. Does everybody know that?
Not many. We never, we don't just put it out there all the time. He wanted me to do that Dale Jr. download one time, and we got to talking all kinds of stories, and I started telling some of them, and he didn't even remember, like throwing eggs all night one night and doing this and that. And like he's like, I don't think I remember that. I'm like, yes, you did. But not we've only talked about it on the air that one time, but yeah, I mean we were good friends growing up, and we still are good friends, and it's been really neat to piddle with the late model stuff again, and him being involved in that car store deal with Kevin. It kind of got us communicating a lot again, which I like, and texting each other a lot, and that's been a lot of fun.
Something that I witnessed, and I noticed that's a fact in NASCAR, that ended up really kind of bothering me a little bit is when I was in NASCAR my whole life, later on, I would find that a lot of these crew members were incredible short trackers. I mean, that's what they did, and they were at local short tracks. But when they came NASCAR, they kind of forgot all about it. Do you run into a lot of crew members like that where they were race car drivers, they were heroes at their local area, but when they come to NASCAR, I would be with these guys for 3 years, and I'm like, "Wait, what? You raced?" You know? Do you run into more and more people like that or not?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always felt like that was kind of key, right? You wanted somebody to work on your team that grew up racing, whether it was go karts or little sprint cars or dirt cars, whatever. Because those guys, they just get it, right? I
Racers
mean, they grew up, yeah, they're just
melt
racers,
their own
and
lead.
that's exactly right. And
Yeah.
like even Dale Fishline just come to work for us
Oh my god.
yesterday, and Dale,
Iowa
you know what I
legend.
mean? Like, yeah. And, he was with me at Stewart Haas for the last 11 years, and we all thought he was retiring. He kept telling everybody he was retiring. And then out of the blue, he called us up. It's like, I don't know, maybe I should work a couple more years. And we're like, all right, get over here now,
Yeah.
you know? So, but, that's the kind of thing you're talking about is like you think about everything that somebody like Dale did growing up, racing go-karts and racing cars and going to Daytona, doing all these things that some people in the shop have no idea he ever did, right? So, to me, it's special to have people like that on your team that are racers, and they just get it. They know what's going on and how to work and how to get along and how to communicate and all those things.
Rodney, I'll look at pictures to this day, and I'll see Magic Shoes, Mike McLaughlin, with a work uniform on working, and I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "That's a hero." That is one of the
Yeah,
greatest modified racers of all time. Dale Fishline, and that is the Iowa racer, right? I
yeah,
think so.
for
I
sure.
mean, one of the great.
Yeah,
It blows my mind away when I keep seeing these incredible race car drivers. But it is that fragile, isn't it, Rodney? I mean, in the end, we all still got to make a living, and in NASCAR jobs. I mean, what's a I guess to get down to the nitty gritty. I mean, if you're a good crew member, what are you going to make 80,000 a year? Uh,
yeah, probably so. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere in the world and make that kind of money. And if you do, you've got to be a major executive. You got to have years of college. And so I guess when I'm asking you, NASCAR pays pretty well, I guess. Yeah.
It does. And, I think the thing these days is people just aren't exposed to it as much as they were like when we were kids. With me growing up around here, I mean, Lord, there was 10 dirt go-kart tracks within an hour drive. Um, and then you had all these, asphalt late model tracks on top of that. And you had Metrolina running dirt cars, and you had going down to Cherokee. You had all these places that people were exposed to things. And, as those dirt tracks have went away, all the go-kart tracks have went away around here. Um, honestly, the only exposure people get is flipping through a channel one day on a Sunday afternoon and sitting on the couch and they're bored and they're like, oh, what's this? I've never watched a NASCAR race before. Let me see what this is like.
Mm.
And at that point, when it's somebody's first time they flip that channel on their first race they've ever watched, you're hoping it's an exciting one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a snooze fest of a race and it's the first one they've ever watched, you're like, crap, I'm not ever watching that again.
Yeah.
So getting that exposure, getting people out to the races. I mean, that's probably the biggest key right now is getting somebody to a race, let them feel the excitement, the sounds, the wind, like all those things of sitting in the stands, getting into turn one in Michigan, like they're going pretty fast. And, if somebody does that one time, they kind of get hooked. But, most people just don't grow up with that exposure anymore. So, what we were talking about of hiring a racer, there's not a lot of them out there anymore. So you kind of have to, find a needle in a haystack every now and then and pick out a good one.
So you are that needle in the haystack. You are incredibly rare. And this is one reason I wanted to talk to you. I admire you immensely because I know your story. I feel like you and I are brothers because I built my own race cars. I did everything myself. So with that being said, when you work with these drivers, now I'm going to go back in a minute, but I want to talk about this. When you work with these drivers, because you were a race car driver and you understand the chassis setup, do you ever feel like, especially let's take Harvick, were you ever like in the car with him, like mentally, like you're talking about Gateway when you went to Gateway with Harvick, or maybe you didn't, but could you feel the car loose? Is what I'm saying.
So it's funny you say that because Cheddar, my car chief, he was just telling my new engineer that our pit box used to have sticker gas pedal, brake pedal, clutch pedal in front of me. Like where I sit as a crew chief, it had these little sticker pedals, and my feet always stayed up there. And Cheddar told Johnny, he's like, there's going to be times when you look over and his feet are moving, especially if we have an in-car camera and it's a roof camera to where he can see exactly what the car is doing and all that stuff. And it was real early in 2014, or even maybe before the season started. I told Kevin, I was like, look, I said, the in-car camera thing is super important to me. I was like, I take a lot from that, where we're at, what we're doing, who we're around. I mean, I can see if the car's loose or tight. I can see if you're running the bottom, the top. I can kind of sense if you're pushing it too hard or burning the tires up or whatever. And I said, we need to do anything and everything we can to keep an in-car camera. I was like, normally that's a sponsored deal. So he actually went to all of our sponsors throughout our whole career together, 10 years, and told them what the in-car camera meant to me, how I thought it made our racing better, how I could adjust the car better, make better decisions when I was pitting, all those things. And he would sell the sponsors on buying as many in-car cameras as they could. And, for us, it just ended up being every week. We would go the whole season, have an in-car camera for 38 weeks. And so, I was always like that. I like to be able to see what we were doing, and I would start making adjustments to the car, like even before we had SMT. Like now SMT, you can see if it's loose or tight.
What is
I
SMT?
used it. It's the car basically has data on it now, so we can see steering wheel angles and traces. We can see the throttle, the brake, all those things, RPM. So I mean, you can see wheel spin. You can see if he's just got a ton of wheel cranked in it in the middle of the corner or whatever. But before that, I used that in-car camera for that. I could tell how comfortable he was. It switched from the roof camera to the in-car, and he'd go down the straightaway and take his hand off the steering wheel and lay it over on the leg brace, and I knew the car was pretty good at that point.
Oh my God.
He's just playing with them here.
I saw Bill Elliott do that one year when I was a kid, and you go back, if you go back and find a Phoenix, the old Phoenix, you will see Bill Elliott coming off of turn 4 and take his right hand and put it over on one of the row bars. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Kevin did that a lot, honestly. And I was like, what are you doing when you put your arm over like that? He said, I don't know. My shoulder gets to hurting. So I just stretch it out every now and then.
Hey,
like, okay.
Speaking of Kevin Harvick, along with Josh Jones, we call him Mother Function on X. They're a little powerhouse, aren't they? I mean, they go get their own money. Actually, I think they could have been a Cup team, those two together.
Oh, for sure.
What is your thoughts on Josh Jones and Kevin? And that, my gosh, they created an empire on their own, didn't they?
They really did. And when they came to Stewart-Haas, I mean, almost every sponsor that was on our car was through them.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Stewart-Haas wasn't going and finding them. It was Kevin and Josh finding them. And, I think the thing about that is Josh has been around Kevin for a long, long time. And, for anybody that has spent a lot of time around Kevin, you learn really what your expectations are, right? Like every day there's a goal, every day there's a schedule, every day there's expectations, and it changes your life, honestly. I wish like crazy, instead of kids sitting in school learning how to use a calculator, you put them with Kevin Harvick for a year and learn how to live life and how to work every day and how to have, mental toughness and all those things. But, I think that's what it has turned into with Josh, is Josh has been around Kevin long enough, and he's turned into a little Kevin, to where he's just out fighting every day. He's finding sponsors, he's signing these young guys to Kevin Harvick Inc. and doing whatever he can to do things the right way. And, like you said, those two are a powerhouse together. And I don't think we can forget about Delana. That keeps them both straight.
Yeah.
So she keeps the boat going in the right direction.
She's always been nice to me. I like Delana. This is a perfect segue. Let's go back now. We've celebrated you. We've talked about how good of a race car driver you are. We've talked about the moment you decided to go back into being a crew chief. It appeared to me, and my heart hurt a little bit, and maybe it shouldn't, but this is a perfect time to ask you, because you just said that Kevin brought you into his positive mental attitude world. And if people talked about you, you just said, ignore the negativity. Everybody's mean to everybody. It seemed like you were emotionally sad when you lost Harvick. And then when, just up until a couple months ago, I follow you religiously. And it's okay. Were you, and I've been bummed out. Were you bummed out during this loss of Harvick going to TV? And then finally the dagger is when what you built, Stewart-Haas Racing, shutting down. Tell me about this time that looked hard from my standpoint.
Yeah, for me, Kenny, it was one of those things that, the old car I was extremely good at. Like I wanted to spend time in the body shop. I wanted to, put the bodies on a certain way. I wanted to have a better front clip than everybody else, a better rear clip than everybody else. Like I felt like I could do it, with the people around me, good body hangers, good chassis guys, good designers, good engineers. Like I could keep that ball rolling as long as we wanted to keep it rolling. For years and years and years, we could have kept it rolling. And so the start of that was really when they come out with the new car. And, the first one rolled in the shop. And I'm like, what am I going to work on?
What is this thing?
Like, what am I going to do every day? And that's really what it turned into for me is like on my way to work every morning with the old car, I had a list, 20 things that I thought we could do that day or that week that we could get by with, or we could do this, we could do that and make our cars better. Well, when the new car came, I would stop at a stoplight on the way to work. And I'm like, what am I going to work on today? Like, there's nothing that I feel like I can do to make this thing better. So then that got compiled with Kevin saying he's going to retire. And I knew that was coming. So, already I'm struggling with working on the new car. The guy that I've won 37 races with in a championship is going to retire. And then you start last year and we're going to shut the place down. And man, I'm not going to lie to you, for 3 years, it was rough. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do. Am I going to keep crew chief and am I not? Am I still having fun or am I not? Do I still want to travel or not? Just so much of that, that stuff was running through my head all the time. And honestly, it was good for Josh to come over and drive the 4-car. I admired Josh, a ton from what he had done in late model stock cars. He made me think of me in that time period. He was a guy that had won a lot of late model races and deserved to be in the big shows on Sunday. I felt like he did anyway. And it become a goal of mine to make sure this guy makes it through this first year, because to me, that's really where it's at right now. The rookies, if you can make it through the first year and still have a ride after that or still have sponsorship, then you can continue. But it is so hard for these young guys to come in and to prove themselves with no practice anymore, no testing anymore. Like they have no opportunity to get better. So for me to work with Josh, it became fun again. Like those last 2 years of Kevin's career, I dreaded the car. I dreaded him retiring. Josh comes in and he's excited. He wants to be there. Not saying that Kevin didn't, but I'm just saying like, here's an opportunity that we can show that this late model racer deserves to be here. And I kept telling everybody, like, Josh isn't going to fail on my watch. Like, no matter if we're shutting down or not, he's not going to fail. And, we went out there and we were really competitive. A lot of the short tracks, we were qualifying up front. We were leading laps. We were contending. And next thing you know, his phone is ringing and has rides going his way for the next year and ends up with the Wood Brothers and all that stuff. So really working with Josh got me going again.
Well, you did your job then. You did your job then. You could.
That's how I felt, all of us did on the whole 4-car.
Yeah, Josh was a little bird. And now he's flying because of you.
Yeah.
And he's at the Wood Brothers probably because of you, because you wanted him as your driver.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to go back to something. Racer to racer. In me and Rusty Wallace, sometimes I say my brother's last name so the people listening know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Sometimes my brother Rusty Wallace and myself, we talk racing. Was it disappointing to you and Kevin to lose the advantages? I mean, when I was in the game, you took the nose, you moved it to the right, to keep the car tight getting in. It would turn better. And it seemed to me back in the, 10 years ago, you had a better car than other guys. Then you put Harvick in it, who's already a great driver. And now you're a powerhouse because your car is truly better than theirs because Rodney's so good. You are such a good crew chief that you've crafted this car. Now let's put Kevin Harvick in it, and you win the 2014 championship, 36 races. Is that era gone now?
I think it is. To have somebody win 10 races a year, I don't know if you'll ever see it again. I really don't. I think in 2014 and in 2015, I might be wrong on this, but I think we led like over 2,000 laps.
Yeah.
Both those years. 2,000 each year, so we led, over 4,000 laps in a 2-year span. And you're not going to see that anymore, not with the new car. So, it was huge for the 5 car to win. I think the 5 car won 4 or 5 races this year. And I saw something where he led over 1,000 laps or maybe 1,500 laps or something. And, those days of us doing that are just over, I feel like.
I've never done this before, but I got on Racing Reference for you. And I would have never dreamed in a million years you would have brought that up. I would have never dreamed. That tells me how analytical you are. Your earnings as a crew chief, $48 million. $48 million. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, go-kart racer. Okay. Laps. Wow. What is that? 183,719 laps led. 12453. 12,453 laps. Is that right? I don't.
Dang.
Hold on, one more thing. Miles, as a crew chief, okay, you've sat on the pit box and you've watched your car. Miles, 245,000 miles, and it's got each race. So here, listen to this. This is great. Hold on, okay. In 2024, with Josh Berry. As you, the crew chief, you watched Josh run 11,659 miles. So you've been in the sport 20 years. You've been a crew chief 20 years, exactly. And every year your drivers ran so many miles. Now let's see this. This is really good. It looks to me like the most miles you ever ran was way back in. As a crew chief, David Rudiman, 2010. Were the races longer back then? You ran
I think they were, yeah.
13,844 miles. A Racing Reference is pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, for sure.
The only reason I bring it up is because you're an analyzer. Are you an analyzer? And who did you get that from?
I don't know. I've just kind of always been that way. I like keeping up with those things. I like, really it's just being a racer. Like you want to lead the most laps of anybody in the series every year. You want to have the most poles of anybody, any cup
Yes.
cup crew chief. You want to have the most poles,
Yes.
most wins. But Paul passed me on most wins for active crew chief this year.
Yeah.
So he's got a couple on me now. But, yeah, you want to be in good company, and to be right there with Paul Wolf is pretty freaking awesome. So, it's but it's just being competitive. I think, I keep up with those numbers because I'm competitive. I want to be the best.
Yeah, I like that because I didn't think the Racing Reference, but why am I saying this? Because I paid attention. I mean, I go around my whole life. I've run 905 races. I'm really proud of that, because how many, I do the same thing. I mean, I go, how many drivers have ran 905? I still hold the most starts in the Xfinity series. So I guess as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm the same way. But that Racing Reference is incredible. It's like a Bible.
It really is, for sure.
Okay, so I'm not going to be a Debbie Downer, we're going to use this moment to tell people to keep digging. And you and I kind of talked about this because I called you and we talked. So for anybody out there that thinks they got it rough, I'm going to say this, and then you add on to it. Okay. Rodney Childers, we've already talked about how great I think you are, but you were really roughed up and you've stayed digging. For example, you went to Ray Evernham Racing and that ended. Everybody followed the Michael Waltrip debacle and it ended. Stewart Haas Racing, it ended. Explain to me, and I know because we're both badasses. That's how we're wired different than everybody. But coming out of you, all those teams shut down. Did you ever think, what the hell? What's going on around here? Where's the camera at? How did you keep going?
Yeah, that part was tough. And you hate to be associated with that too, in a way, right? Like, you don't want it to be like everywhere you ever went ended up shutting down, because we were also successful at the same time, right?
You
So,
won. You're winning. You're
I
winning.
saw Frankie Stoddard yesterday at lunch, and that's one of the things he said. He's like, "Lord, I hope you don't shut down a fifth one." And I was like, "I'm gonna punch you in the stomach." But you know what I mean? Like, what in the world?
Same thing happened to me everywhere I went. I took a brand new crew chief, started a team, and then it shut down. I'm like, damn, I'm good at that.
I don't know. I mean, you hate to see that, right? But but also I think I was just in that spot at the right time, like, I mean, every place goes through rough times or spells or whatever, and it just kind of happened all at that time. And
But you started those
it
teams
just
pretty. I mean, when you were at Michael Waltrip, that's when your legend started because here's Mark Martin Mark Martin made you famous. I mean, my God, he talked about you all the time.
he really did. Yeah. Yeah, I owe a lot to Mark for sure.
He's a badass. Okay, so here we are,
He
already
really
an
is.
hour. But I look at that, Rodney. I kind of went through the same thing. I look at that as when one shut down, they wanted you because you were winning, and they didn't shut down because of the way the cars ran. They were really weird deals,
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's have fun here. Like I said, I'm a big fan of yours on Instagram, and you have a wonderful family. It appears to me we share something in common. We are going to make sure we love our wives and we love our children. And I see the effort that you put in to loving your wife and loving your children. My kids are copying you. They got every app at Disney World. Tell me,
Yeah.
tell me about the love for your wife and two boys.
Yeah, I mean, when I met Katrina, that's really what got my mind going. Like I said, I want to get married, I want to do this, I want to do that. And like, I've been so fortunate from that standpoint. People don't believe me when I say we've been together for 23 and a half years and we've never had an argument. They're like, there's no way that's even possible. And but it's true. And they have supported me through thick and thin. And then obviously my kids, I think when the boys were born, I just kind of assumed that when they got to 4 years old, we were buying go-karts and we were go-kart racing. And we were going to travel all over the place and race go-karts, and we were going to do this and that. And, I kind of pushed that in a way, but I never pushed it to the point to where I was making the decision. I wanted them to make the decision like I did. So I bought them a little kid cart. They didn't care much for it. I bought them a little UTV. They didn't care much for it. A little PW50 dirt bike. They didn't care much for it. So all those things, that kind of changed like where we have headed on a path as a family. They absolutely love going to the racetrack with me.
They're proud
And
of
now
you.
that we're at Spire, yeah. And, now that we're at Spire, it has just lit a fire under them. Like, they want to come here to the shop every single day after school. Like, they think it's so cool that the trucks are in here. They see it as a learning curve for them. Like, hey, I could work on one of those trucks at some point and I can learn, and then I can move up to the Cup Series one day. And, they don't really know what they want to do. Like I said, that whole, all the kids right now, they just grew up different than us, right?
Yeah.
So, like, and for me, I stay so busy here at work, even when they come to the shop, I struggle to help them. I don't know where that path is of, all right, go back there and learn that. I stuck Brody with the shot guy one day. I'm like, do not leave this guy's side. No matter what he's doing, watch what he's doing. And, but we have tried to maintain that throughout my whole career. As you know, from having motorhomes throughout your career, they're not cheap. And it costs a lot of money to have somebody drive them from race to race. And a lot of the other crew chiefs think I'm crazy because I'm one of the last ones that still have a motorhome going around.
It's important.
But I do that because my wife and kids,
Yeah.
they like to go to the racetrack. They like to be there. They like to be involved. But, those are the things that we have decided to do as a family. We spend a lot of money to keep the happiness going. So, I met with everybody on the 7 team. I had all the pit crew guys come over from Hendrick, and we stood in a room, and I was like, I'm going to start this meeting out with one thing. The most important thing in your life is your wife, your kids, your mom and dad, your grandma, your grandpa. And I was like, everything that's inside these walls of this race team comes second. If you have a problem that you need to take care of, if you have an appointment that you need to go to, if you have a family member that's battling cancer or going through something bad, we all need to know about it. We all need to go through it together with you. We all need to pray about it every day. We all need to do those things. And, as I've got older, I've realized that more and more, by losing people that you really cared about. So we've tried to keep that going. Everybody on the race team loves my kids. They love my wife, and they treat them just like their own kids. And, that's the way we want to keep it as much as we can.
I think that's great advice, because I know for a fact when it really is true. It's a silly cliche. They say happy wife, happy life, but really when the family is happy, crew members come hopping into work. I really believe that. One when you were talking, it made me think about the boys, whether they were going to race or not. Kenny Schrader's always got a quip. I call it a joke, but Schrader always ends everything with what I call a quip. Like, there's always some little thing, instead of dun 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 dun. Schrader's got that very end, and he says his boy Sheldon, Kenny Schrader's thinking, well, maybe my boy's wants to be a race car driver. So Kenny says, he tells this story so funny. He says, well, Sheldon, I took you racing with me all week long. You stayed in the motorhome with Dad. Do you think you want to be a race car driver? Schrader tells me that Sheldon looked at him, and Schrader, Sheldon's very smart. Sheldon says, I don't think so, Dad. This racing looks really dangerous. You see, but you know what? As silly as it sounds, during Sheldon growing up, we lost a lot of drivers. And that sticks in people's heads, and some it doesn't. You're a great person, Rodney.
Thank you.
You're really nice. You're extremely smart. You got it going on. Okay, let's end like this. I guess you're at Spire Motorsports right now. Give me an update on the team. I mean, right this second. What's around you? How many cars we got? What's the clash look like?
It's pretty interesting because I'm sitting in a brand new office with brand new furniture, a brand new chair. I don't know why I need this headrest.
I got it at Target.
Sleep here.
Office Max.
Yeah. But this office area used to be part of the showroom of KBM,
Oh,
and now it's all new crew chief offices. All the engineers are down here with us. Competition's down here. We're all right here together. Um, and they've spent a lot of money to make all this happen. We have a brand new hauler out sitting out there. A lot of brand new people, brand new cars, a pit box, a generator cart's brand new. Like, I mean, we have nice stuff and we have good people. And now it's time to start putting them together, putting the cars together, building them the right way, making them lighter, make the center of gravity lower than the guy next to you,
wow.
and
Yeah.
all those things. I mean, that's really what it's down to at this point. Is I feel like we have all the equipment that we need. Um, we're getting as much information as we can from General Motors and Chevrolet and Hendrick Motorsports, and hopefully we can go out there and contend. I mean, I feel like we have the people and the equipment to go do that, and hopefully we can.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind. The reason was that Eddie Dickerson there at Spire. I know the reason they hired you, because you elevate the team. Any corporation. Hey, Rodney, you are going to make that team better because you've had so much success, and I think it's awesome that Spire hired you, because that's the reason they hired you, because you're gonna elevate the team. Not just are you smart, but you know everybody in the industry. And like you said, you're now. Did Chevrolet welcome you back with open arms? Do they still love you?
Yeah, it's pretty neat because Eric Ward pretty much runs everything over at Chevrolet now, and he was the technical director at Evernham when I was there. So we worked side by side for a long time. A lot of the GM folks that are over there, a lot of them are from Waltrip. Kenny Francis is there, and we were best buddies
I'll
for
be
a
darned.
long time
Kenny
working together.
Francis.
So it's been great, honestly. Like, I have a ton of people that work over there, and it's been really good so far.
That's awesome. Well, all right, there he is, everybody. Rodney Childers. He's going to win again. He's going to make Spire Motorsports and his driver Justin Haley going to put him in victory lane. Rodney, thank you so much for being on Kenny Conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've always looked up to you and what you did in your racing career, and obviously Rusty and Mike, and we get to race against Mike again here in the Daytona 500, so that'll be cool. But I've always loved keeping up with your podcasts and everything that you do, whether it's on TV or all kinds of things. You do a good job at it. So thanks for having me on and invite me to do this. It's been really good.
Thank you, Rodney. And remember, everybody, the Kenny Conversations are on YouTube, and you can find it now on Dale Jr.'s Dirty Mo Media on their podcast. So you can find this two ways, right here on YouTube or over there with Dale Jr.'s Dirty Mo Media. Kenny Conversations now live on their podcast too. So two ways to listen to Rodney Childers. Until the next Kenny Conversation, we'll see y'all next time.